Hey crafters! Today we're going to make a card with a main image as the focal point. The best part is, this is quick and easy, and you probably already have all these supplies in your craft room. So here are the basic supplies that you'll need. You need a stamp set that you really love using. I'm going to use these yoga frogs. They're very cute and the sayings are just perfect. Then you'll need a large stencil. I'm going to use this one here. This is from thecraftersworkshop.com, but any stencil would work for this. Then you'll need a couple inks of the same color but different shades. I'm going to use 2 Distress Oxides as well as 1 Distress ink. They're all shades of purple, so they go well together. Then you'll need some sort of texture paste. You could use white or glossy. I'm going to use this one, which is Polar White by Cosmic Shimmer. You could always use ink if you don't have texture paste. Just use a different contrasting color. You'll need some of these nesting dies in the shape that you like. You could always cut the shapes if you don't have the nesting dies. And then you'll need a small sentiment die that says happy birthday, or if you don't have that, just get 3 letters, HBD, which is happy birthday. And then some sort of sequins or confetti to go on top that will look nice on your card. Lastly, some glossy accents to add some shine and something to color in your stamped images with. I'm going to use these 2 shades of green Copic colors. Now that we've gone through the supplies, let's get started. So I'm going to start by coloring in my frog using the 2 shades of Copic colors. I'm starting with the lighter color, and this is going to be on most of the torso, and then I'll use the darker green on the legs, and then I'll blend the 2 together. And I'm going to leave the light green on the frog's warts as well, which I will eventually cover with glossy accents to give it that little bit of texture. I'm also going to draw in some texture on his chin, just to make him look more like a frog. Adding a bit of glossy accents really makes your main image pop on your card. I've even put some on his eyes, so he'll really look good and stand out. So I'm going to set that aside to completely dry. Meanwhile, I'm going to get my sentiment ready. So I'm going to use some Distress Oxide and blend it on a piece of scrap paper. Then using another piece of scrap paper, I'm going to stamp one of the sentiments from the Yoga Frog stamp set. And then once I'm happy with that, I will trim both of them and layer the white paper on top of the color Distress Oxide background. You could always use your nesting dies to cut these out if you prefer. Speaking of nesting dies, I'm going to use these 2 rectangles. The smallest one is 2.5 by 3.5 inches, and the largest one is 3 by 3 3/4 inches. So I'm going to use the largest one and die cut this with my die cut machine. And on the smallest panel, I'm going to use my Distress Oxides and blend an ombre effect. So starting with my lightest oxide at the top, and then putting my darkest oxide at the bottom, and then I will blend these 2 colors together. Now, of course, you don't need to do the whole panel, you just need to do the area that your die cut shape will cut out. So make sure the middle part here is nicely blended, and the ends I'm not that fussed about. Now, once I'm happy with the blending on here, I'm going to use my heat tool and just give it a nice blast so that I know it's completely dry before I add on my texture paste. Now I'm going to secure my stencil with a piece of double-sided post-it note tape from the back and a little piece at the top as well. Now, as I mentioned, if you don't like using texture paste or you don't have any, just use a contrasting color of ink instead. and you'll get a similar effect with the supplies that you have. Once this is completely dry, I will die cut it with that smaller rectangle, the 2.5 by 3.5 inch rectangle. Now on that larger rectangle, I'm going to use a bit of scrap on the end, and I'm going to ink blend some distress ink along the edge. And this is the area that I'm going to die cut my HBD letters from. I'll set that aside to dry, and then using the same color of distress ink, I'll blend that over the 3 by 3 3/4 inch rectangle. Once I'm happy with the blending, I'm going to use my water bottle to spray on the larger piece of paper here. And I used a little bit of old recycled packaging to protect the smaller rectangle on the right hand side there, so it wouldn't get wet. Then while that dries, I'm going to die cut my letters, or if you prefer, you could use a sentiment or even a stamp for this, whatever supplies that you have in your craft room. Now using that same color of distress ink, while I've got it handy, I'm going to use a little bit of it on my medium mat on the white area on the right there and spray it with my water bottle. Now using my main background, which is 6 by 6, I'm going to splatter some of that distress ink on top. And as this distress ink dries, it will become a little bit lighter, so I'll keep that in mind and add as much as I want to on the background. So now we've created all the components and we just need to put the card together. So here's the finished background and the 2 rectangles that we die cut, and the sentiment and the frog which we colored. We also have the letters, happy birthday, and the sequence ready to go. So I'm going to start by laying these rectangles a little bit haphazardly so that you can still see the texture paste on the back one, and there's a nice contrast between the 2 purples. I'm using liquid glue to adhere these because of the texture paste. I want to make sure that the one on top sticks to the one with the texture paste. Then I'm going to use some foam squares on my frog and apply him, and then glue my sentiment on the right hand side at the top there. Then I'll put my HBD letters so that they're sort of parallel to the sentiment. Depending on the shape of your card, you can change the elements around. Then once I'm happy with the placement of this, which I've also applied with a liquid white glue, which dries clear, I'm going to add some glue around the card where I want to adhere my sequence. Then I will glue my sequence randomly all over the card wherever I think it needs a splash of color. I'm using a very fine tip glue bottle, which is perfect for when you're adding sequins or jewels to the top of your card. Now I'm using my jewel picker to pick up the jewels, and then I'm putting them randomly over my card. Now let's do the sentiment inside the card. So I'm going to use a happy birthday sentiment from a Hero Arts set, as well as one of the frogs from the Yoga Frog set. And I'm going to stamp these with the 2 distress ink colors. Now I will have to stamp a few times to get a crisp image, but I'm quite happy with that ombre effect. Now I'm going to adhere my card front to my 6 by 6 inch card using double-sided tape, and I will show you my finished card in my purples, as well as another one that I created in pinks. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you'll try this with your favorite stamp set. Have a crafty day.